we get started, and people can wander in as they wander in. And like I said, we're recording this, and so we'll post it later on our YouTube page. So let me first introduce our guests. Let's see. I'll go in kind of reverse order here on my screen. We have Miya Higashiyama, who is just finishing her master's at Northwestern University in Evanston, just outside of Chicago. Nick Stevens, who has already finished his master's, yes?
Yes, last week.
Yes. Okay, finished last week at Indiana University. And Josh Carlisle, who is graduating tomorrow from the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, New York. So we're really fortunate to have you all here with us, and really, you are representing three very high-powered graduate school programs in music, and so I think it's a really unique opportunity for our students to hear what you have to say about your process before grad school, during grad school, and then maybe looking to the future a little bit as well. So I've structured my questions kind of in that chronological order to kind of help our students understand this in a kind of clear timeline. And I'd love to hear from you all. And I should tell our audience that I did not submit my questions to you beforehand because I really wanted your candid responses. So I can edit later if you really want me to. So anyway, let me start by asking, did you all take a gap year years between undergraduate and graduate study? If so, how long? I'll start there. Yeah. Miya, what do you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. I took 2 gap years. I had a bit of a wild journey. I was not intending to take 2 gap years, but due to sort of the circumstances surrounding my voice and the schools I got into, I thought and some extra time would be better. So I graduated PLU in 2017 and then started at Northwestern in 2019.
Great. Josh is chewing, so Nick, why don't you go ahead?
Give Josh a moment. So I graduated from PLU in 2018, and I had originally planned on going straight on to grad school, but that didn't work out. My work ethic at PLU left much to be desired, so I had to take a couple years to sort of be ready to move on to, the next step, and which I'm really grateful for. Actually, I took that time. I only wanted to take 1 year off, but I ended up meeting my current partner, and I didn't really get an offer that I was happy with until 2020. And that's when I went to grad school.
Great. Josh?
Yeah, I graduated PLU in 2019. So I took 1 gap year and started at Eastman in fall of 21. Is that right? Fall 2020. And in that gap year, a lot of my impetus for that decision was I wanted to get out and see how successful I could be on my own, just trying to get gigs, seeing what kind of stuff I was ready for. I graduated, I was still like 20 when I graduated, so I wanted to give my voice a little more time to mature and find the right teacher and have to really do the research for what school I wanted to go to. So, yeah.
Great. So yeah, you all took some time between, and I think that's great. That kind of segues well into this, and you've started talking about it, but why don't we talk about what you all did with that gap time? Did you take voice lessons? Did you do other things? Did you do any performing? What sorts of things? Josh, do you want to lead us off on that since I went last?
Yeah, sure. So my gap year was pretty eventful. Aside from the touring new schools and getting applications in and whatnot, I auditioned and got into the Associate Sale Opera Chorus. So I did a contract with them, and I was supposed to do a second contract before COVID shut that whole thing down. And then I did a couple shows with Dr. Brown at Vashon, and I taught almost full time. I had 26 voice students and like 11 piano students. So yeah, that was my plan.
Great. Miya?
My answer is not too different. I also sang with Vashon Opera and also some stuff with Symphony Tacoma, and did a mix of voice and piano teaching and also collaborative piano playing because I did piano with Oksana Ajokina while I was at PLU and sort of paid the bills doing all of that. And I did that for both years. And then in the times I wasn't doing that, I was traveling to schools to sort of tour and meet prospective teachers and get a sense of what I wanted.
Nick?
Yeah, similar for me too. I spent my gap years in Portland and I took voice lessons and I worked and I also did the audition rounds twice, so that took up a lot of time. Yeah, I did some singing with Portland Opera and a couple other ensembles like Portland Baroque Orchestra. So that was a really great experience that I got during that time. And I also sang at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral, and that was probably my biggest long-term gig there. So there's a lot of things. It was eclectic.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you all made good use of the time. Are there things you wish you had done in that gap time?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. I kind of wish I taught a little less. A lot. I don't know.
And why did you teach so much? Did you just feel the need to make money and
Well,
that sort of thing?
I had actually, like, I worked for the same piano studio that Miya used to teach at as well. And then I was very serendipitous. I got like 20 students handed to me, Spanaway Lake High School. And it was just really overwhelming. It was a lot of teaching to do. Really feel qualified to do it. So, I mean, I did a good job, in my own estimation, but
Mhm. I guess personally, I wish I had just done more music, auditioned more than I did. I mean, I can always say that I wish I'd done more of this and that, but I think for me, I just kind of settled into my day job, which wasn't music related, and I just sort of was waiting to go to grad school. I still did musical things, but I guess in hindsight, I wish I had maybe auditioned for some more things, in Portland at least, or elsewhere.
Yeah, I really self-discipline and sort of being in a music major environment is something I think a lot of folks take for granted. I certainly did at PLU. And then the second you're out of that, you have to find and create your own structure. And so kind of bouncing off of what Josh said, I mean, talking all day teaching is so vocally taxing. And so that by the time you sit at the piano, and try to practice your own rep, you're vocally fried. So I would echo Josh's sentiments, certainly. And I would also say, I think, I wish I had taken more time to take my voice lessons more seriously and also take more time to explore different rep. I kind of just stuck with the same stuff. And it wasn't until I started with my teacher here at Northwestern that we shifted. But I never really took the time to just explore new things since I had a little bit more free time. And I think that would have been beneficial for a myriad of reasons. So,
Great answers. Yeah. Sorry to catch you off guard with that.
good
What to
question.
think?
Yeah. Well, it's my job, right? So, how did you compile the list of schools for which you auditioned? And, it's a bit daunting, of course, for people auditioning for grad school because of the expense of traveling to do all these auditions, and then, of course, application fees, et cetera, and also trying to maintain your voice and build your repertoire as well. How did you go about compiling or prioritizing a list of grad schools?
I can start. Yeah, I have sort of a unique situation in that my partner is an organist, and we were searching for grad schools at the same time. So part of what we factored in was sort of which schools would work for both of us. So that narrowed things down in a way because not every good voice school has a good organ program and vice versa. So that was a huge factor. Also, just knowing which schools had teachers that had a reputation for working well with tenors. So that was also a factor that narrowed down. I ended up applying for 10 programs, which was a lot. And it was very expensive. So yeah, it was a process, and it was hard to choose which schools to go to apply for.
Of those 10, how many did you get auditions for?
10,
All 10. Yeah. Well,
and
then
yeah,
that was quite expensive then.
was the travel? Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I can say that.
Yeah.
My list, well, I'll say list plural because my list from year one versus year two shifted a bit, but there was a little overlap. A lot of it truly was just personal connections and advice. So, to anyone watching the panel now or later, I was a student of Jim, Dr. Brown, and there was a phenomenal baritone in Dr. Brown's studio named Eric, and that is how I heard about Northwestern. I also got into USC my first year, which is a fantastic program that I also heard about from Jim. Some, asking around, the Seattle Opera, Tacoma Opera Circuit. So a lot of it was, somewhat my own research, but a lot of word of mouth, like, oh, hey, you should check out this teacher or this school or this school. And if I could go back to 24-year-old Miya and say you don't have to go to a school that necessarily looks the greatest on paper, but may not be a good fit for you personally. I wish I could just go, because I think sometimes we can get caught up in, names like Rice or Juilliard or, all these amazing places that are amazing, but may not be good fits for everybody for various and sundry reasons. So my second year, I sang for 6 schools, or I'm sorry, I submitted for 7 schools and sang for 6. So it was, to kind of bounce off Nick, extremely expensive. And not only expensive, also the amount of time you have to take off work. If you don't have a job that's amendable to that, then it can be really challenging. So.
And my story is a little bit, I think, different than our previous two, because my entire thought process of when I first started my auditions was that I wasn't going to get in anywhere, and I was just doing 3 applications so that I could feel out the application process and work on my audition there. So I only applied to 3 schools I thought I would never get into: Rice, Juilliard, and Eastman. And I was right about 2 of those. So anyways, so I ended up getting an audition at Eastman, and once I had a lesson with my current teacher, it became obvious to me that I needed to come to this school. And I would definitely wholeheartedly agree with what Miya said. Eastman's a great name, and I'm really happy it's on my resume because it has a good reputation, but it is not the main reason I came here. It's about the teacher first and foremost. And if my professor was at some community college or something, which he never would be, but if it was that, I would go there instead, So that was kind of my main factor in that whole thing.
That's great. No, it's great to hear your different perspectives and experiences with that. So talk to us about the audition process. So you submit a screening recording and you're invited to go and audition. I guess it's limited to the schools where you currently are, unless you have something outside of that experience that you think is notable. And tell us what that audition process was like.
I'll go first if you want, since I went last time.
Yeah.
I submitted some pre-screening auditions. Eastman's repertoire selections, at least for pre-screening, were not very laborious. So I appreciated that. It was 5 or 6 selections I had to submit. And I got invited to do a live audition in Rochester. So I came out, and I think Nick was here too. So Nick can refresh my memory if I
sure was.
But I think they gathered us all in Kodak Hall. And then I remember being really annoyed because they didn't tell us our audition time until the morning. And that was super annoying.
Yes.
I stand by that. That is a stupid thing to do. But so we got together and we made we found out what time we were auditioning. And then we had everybody kind of got an audition day schedule of where you were supposed to be and when. And so we had to go to some kind of graduate student orientation meeting that kind of explained how the degree was structured and what classes you'd have to take and whatnot. And then there was a meeting where we met all of what we call the VOVC, which is the voice and opera coaching department. And they, introduced themselves, said what they did at the school, and we all said our piece. And then we had an interview with one of the coaches. Mine was with the first year master's coach, Tim Long, who Dr. Brown and Dr. Cho both know very well. And then there was the audition in Kilbourne, which was for all of the voice teachers, which was like, I think there's 7 of them that sit in the room, and they heard 2 selections. And then that was it.
Mm-hmm. I would say that IU was actually a little bit quite less involved from what I recall. It was the audition, the submission online, and it was probably 3 arias and a couple art songs. Like I said, I did a lot of auditions, so sort of remembering what this one required, I'm like, oh. But it was something like that. And then the actual audition was pretty low key. It didn't have all these steps. I'm pretty sure I just walked right into the hall, sang 2 selections, and they're like, okay, safe travels home. Which is really not a lot compared to a couple of the other auditions I did, like at Yale, for example, where they hold you hostage for a whole weekend, and they have all these events. So it's just, every school's got a different system for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember putting all the, and I know, granted, we all did this pre-COVID. I'm sure things have changed so much in the era of COVID, but I remember putting together a deeply nerdy like spreadsheet of everything everyone wanted and tried to find as much overlap as possible, just so I could do the least amount of work as possible. Not work, but not having to learn like 80,000 pieces. And yeah, to kind of echo what the gentlemen have said, very similar thing. Most schools, it was like 4 to 6 pieces, maybe. The most laborious was definitely CCM. Northwestern, I think I walked in with 4 contrasting things. I started with an aria, and then they asked for a Bach thing. And also, like Nick said, they said, have a nice flight or whatever. But yeah, I will say though, I think it can really, really depend on the school, because in thinking of the schools I sang for, it was somewhat similar, but each one was still also somewhat slightly different. And usually a lot of the schools will include like either you can coach with somebody or you get like a tour or kind of some extra stuff. But again, in the era of COVID, I don't know how much of that is happening anymore. But yeah, that was my experience. It's pretty good.
That's great. And so for placement tests, like for theory, history, that kind of your training, that kind of thing, did you do that as part of your introductory week to school or beforehand? Or I know some schools do it for the scholarship auditions, or for the the auditions to get in, to the school sometimes. So
I can go first on this. For the sake of being candid, it's a little bit frustrating the way IU does it. They don't do any of the testing until after you've accepted to go. And if you're going to apply to IU, this is something to know, they charge by the credit. So if you have to take a remedial course, you're paying for it. But you don't know what you're going to have to pay for until after you've decided to go. This is just something to know for certain schools. This is the way they do it. So that's what I had to go through. And because of COVID, my first year was during lockdown, so all of my testing was online, but that was after I had accepted the offer.
Yeah, I can say that. Oh, go ahead, Mia. You go first.
Oh, okay. I don't really remember too much, just because some of them you did it at the audition. I remember MSM's diagnostic tests were so freaking hard. I remember I turned it in half empty, and the proctor was like, "Everyone turns theirs in empty. It's fine." I was like, "Oh God, okay." But Northwestern's diagnostic tests were orientation week, the first week of school. But I will say Northwestern is a very, very performance-based degree. We don't do a lot of super kind of academia stuff, which is kind of nice. It's one of the goals of the school to me personally. So we just had remedial theory, which I passed out of, but I think I only passed out of it because I have piano background. It was wicked hard. But yeah, we did that our first week. But I will say, I don't know if this is true for every school, but Northwestern gave us a study guide and a warning as to what would be on it so that students could attempt to pass out. It wasn't like, psych, here's your test. So that was really nice looking back
nice, yeah.
on 2019. Yeah, so go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say thank you, Nick, for bringing that up, because that was one of the things I wanted to make sure I brought up, because yes, you will pay by the credit. which means that your degree will end up being cheaper than like paying a flat tuition rate, but it also means he's 100% ready. He will pay for your courses if you need them.
Mhm.
Eastman likes to, and I think it's true, it's a very like academic institution. They really are trying to raise academic musicians. So it's kind of the polar opposite of what Miya was describing at Northwestern. We do a lot of performing, obviously, but they're really heavy on the academic. So I had to take 3 entrance exams online in August. They're normally done in person, but COVID. So there was a theory placement exam, which for my piano background was not too bad, although double check which theory textbook your institution uses, because some of the like Roman numerals is not universal. So like cadential 6/4s are labeled in different ways. So just double check. And then I had to take a history placement exam, which was wicked hard. Like probably one of the hardest tests I've ever taken in my life. And then a listening exam, which they give you the materials for in advance, but it's like 40 pieces you have to be able to identify, down to like the movement of a symphony. So that's kind of tough to do. And they give you like 7 or 8 that aren't on the listening exam, and so you guess what the composer might be and when it might have been written. It all sounds intimidating, but if you study and you like make a study plan, it's not that bad. Like I passed all the classes. I didn't have to do any remedial stuff. So it's not that scary, but definitely something to keep in mind.
That's great. Yeah, that's really interesting to hear about the wide range of requirements and protocols. So you're all going through. You're finishing your graduate study at this extraordinarily difficult time for the arts and for obviously for training programs in music with the pandemic and everything. So how was it? How did you come through? I kept up a little bit with Josh about his performance activities, and I was able to watch some Bach, which was wonderful. On some streaming. And so streaming has been a great boon for all of us, I know, just being able to do something, get on stage and do something and have someone see it, But what were some innovative, I know Miya, you had a così, right? That was a kind of innovative approach, right? To direction. Maybe each of you talk about something that stands out from your pandemic graduate experience where your school kind of did something innovative and had a good solution for that.
I can lead off on this one because I have one that comes to mind very easily. I was in 2 productions my first year here. I was in Argento's Postcard from Morocco, and I was in this really cool Kevin Puts piece, Elizabeth Creek. And both of them were filmed operas, but they were filmed in 2 very different ways. So the first one was a big green screen set, and they wanted to be matched. And I got to sing in a straitjacket, which was cool. But so they had like this whole camera set up, and we had 3 different angles, and we were hitting. And now that sounds super cool, but I must also admit that they told us it would take 3 months to edit, and that was a year and a half ago, and it still hasn't come out completely. So, but with Elizabeth, they learned from their mistakes, and I thought it was so cool. They had us do the show on stage, and then they just had cameras in the theater. So then they just had to splice together different scenes, and we recorded the audio separately, which actually ended up making the audio really good because it was basically as its probe, and we didn't have to worry about blocking or anything. We were on score, so all the notes and rhythms are right. So there were advantages because nobody can tell if you're singing or not. So anyways, that was it.
Yeah, so my opera director at Northwestern actually majored in film. His entire training is in film. He's had a wild life. He's this amazing, cool German man. And so there's kind of 3 projects that come to mind for me. Now, granted, there were like 2 or 3 quarters we did absolutely nothing, like at the height of the pandemic. So I did lose a good chunk of performing opportunities, but we did a Orfeo remote at the very beginning of the L'Orfeo by Monteverdi at the very beginning of the pandemic, where over 45 students from home filmed with their iPhones. We recorded, sent to our audio mixer, and that's actually on YouTube, shameless plug. And so we put that together, and which was a huge feat. And then like Jim was saying, we did a virtual 60 feet apart Cozy fan tutte, I sang Dorabella. When I sang the duet with Guillermo, the heart duet, we were over 60 feet apart, but we edited to like look like we were next to each other. It's the weirdest thing, but
makes seduction fairly difficult, but okay.
Oh my gosh, it was just, oh my gosh. On doing the ensemble 60 feet apart, a nightmare. Thankfully, I'll do some more Dorabella this summer at Des Moines.
Oh, good.
And then the third project we did the most recently, that was a little bit more on stage, but also COVID adjusted, was If I Were You by Jake Heggie, which is a new opera. Jake Heggie was in residency with us, which was one of the highlights of my musical life to date. It was amazing. But for that, we had to adjust blocking so it was safe, domestic violence blocking, kissing, things like that. We had to up our testing and kind of edit the show due to lost time from COVID, as well as just kind of general COVID safety. And we filmed parts of that for those that could not attend. So those are sort of the three experiences that come to mind. And yeah, I feel like streaming is really becoming the go-to. My master's recital is now a streaming only event. And so that's been a really unique experience, I think, as for all of us as artists, to have to be forced to work with, because I think it's something that's not going to go away post-COVID, if there ever is a post-COVID. Yeah.
I had a very, very different experience, actually, with the way that IU adapted to the pandemic. We didn't do sort of the cool projects that the other schools did with the films, and I honestly wish we had, because that's really neat. But IU did a great job of still providing performance opportunities to the students who are paying to be there, and they still did a full season minus one show of staged opera performances and just following COVID health guidelines. And it's hard to sing for no audience, which is what we did, but at the same time we had the opportunity to sing, and it was streamed. So for example, the first show of the season that I did, I was in Little Women. I sang Laurie, and it was great to be able to go straight into IU and have a performance opportunity. Of course, we had to sing with masks on and I think it was 10 feet apart when we were singing. And we had to get tested all the time, and it was a whole thing. Actually, no, this might have been before testing was. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of guidelines, and it was tough, but we made it work. And we just had an excellent stage director who worked around these hurdles and found ways to make the drama convincing, even though we couldn't be closer than 10 feet, especially when you're talking about intimate situations, and which there aren't a lot of in Little Women because they're children. But I was very proud of the way that my school handled the pandemic with its shows.
That's great. I mean, go ahead, Josh.
I just think it was so interesting to watch what kinds of new art were possible only because of COVID, stuff you would never be able to do on stage. I'm thinking specifically of a scene in Postcard where during the scene, my character goes up a bunch and clothes, supposedly, again, it hasn't been released, will just disappear off my body mid-aria. And then that's so cool. You'd never be able to do it on stage. So, there were silver linings to the whole thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. A silver lining for me was being able to watch all three of you actually in various streaming platforms. As I mentioned, I saw Josh in concert doing in their Bach Cantata series, and Miya, I saw the Orfeo, which was great, and the Così. And Nick, I had the pleasure of seeing your Fenton in Falstaff, which was fantastic. Really great. All three of you. It's so great. It's so rare. Well, from the before times, it was rare to see what your students from your institution went on to do after undergrad. So that's been a silver lining for me, for sure. We've had our challenges, Barry and I, with producing opera at PLU, but we've managed to do it. We did a Fledermaus last year that was rehearsed outdoors in the tent in Red Square with masks, outside with masks, and distanced, and like Little Women. Of course, Fledermaus is a little more adult than Little Women, but you have to be very. One had to be very. Barry had to be very careful about how he handled the blocking with and waltzing was at a distance. So. It was very strange, but it actually worked, and in the end, we were able to perform indoors. And anyway, and then of course this past J term we just did Julius Caesar in Italian, which was a real treat, and we were able to do it for the most part unmasked. So that was great. So hopefully we're coming out of it. But I agree with all of you that there have been some wonderful innovations that we never imagined before this horrible thing. So now the dreaded question for any singer: what do you have coming up? Right? It's like everyone loves to ask that, right? So, but yeah, in more than specific gigs, which of course, if you want to mention, that's great. But also just kind of your general future plans beyond as you all graduate with your masters. What are your general plans as far as coming up soon or 5 to 10 years from now? What are your overall goals? Be interested to hear that.
I can start. So tomorrow I have my first rehearsal for Falstaff with Puget Sound Concert Opera.
Oh, good.
And
That's
so
great.
I'll be singing Bardolfo on June 10 and 12. So be there, be square. I'm
Nice.
excited for that.
June 10 and 12, did you say?
Yes.
That's great. Can I tell you, as a tenor that sang Fenton and Bardolfo, you're going to have so much more fun with Bardolfo.
I already am.
Yeah, I know.
I can tell you
I know.
that much.
Because Fenton, it's like every time you're on stage, you have to sing the most beautiful music in the entire opera.
That's what I'm saying. Yes. And Bardolfo's just fun.
Oh, Bardolfo.
Yeah,
is
I mean,
awesome.
like Fenton is really inconsequential in terms of the plot, but every time he opens his mouth, it has to be beautiful singing. That's the point of the role.
It really is.
So there's that. I'll be in Seattle for most of the summer, but then moving to Chicago. My partner got a job at St. James Cathedral, and I'll be going with. My career is yet to be determined there, but I really do hope to break into the local scene there, and it's a big one. So I'm excited to see what opportunities there are.
Yeah, who wants to be next? Go ahead.
Okay.
Josh, go ahead.
Oh no, Josh, go ahead.
So while I was here, my last 2 years, I kind of got ingrained into the local choral scene a little bit. It started off just kind of getting from obviously Choir of the West. Like, it's such a gift to have all of that experience because sight reading and just general. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I'm a pretty good choral singer, and that can get you some consistent pay. Somebody, especially as a tenor, it's like the last weekend, I got a last-minute gig to come sing. Oh, I don't even remember what it was. It was the Nelson Mass, the Haydn Nelson Mass. Just, read through it once and then made like $175 paycheck left. And I got, so I highly encourage anybody, meet the choir directors because they will give you so many gigs. I'm in 2 local professional choral ensembles. One of them is pretty new. The other one's been around for a while. And I've got an audition at St. John the Divine in New York City next month. So that would be like super cool. And like I'm sending in auditions to different choral ensembles, Seraphic Fire, whatnot. And I've got a cover at Geneva Light Opera for just like a trio or something. And yeah, it's a trio. And Abduction. What else? Auditioning for ADs next audition cycle, and Yaps because that's what we do.
Okay, so I have a lot coming up, which is great. Kind of surreal actually, given the last couple years of tragedy and no art happening. So my master's recital is Monday. It was actually canceled by the university, but I'm doing my own thing. I'm going to stream with tracks in the hall. I'll be singing some Defia, Debussy, musical theater, John Adams, Kurt Weill, a little bit of everything. And then I'm not walking at commencement because I'm going to be singing as an apprentice artist at Des Moines Metro Opera this summer. for their 50th season, which I'm unbelievably grateful and stoked for. I still can't even believe it's real life. And so I'll be singing in A Midsummer's Night's Dream, which was the first opera I did at PLU, actually. And then some Cenerentola, Dorabella, and at Des Moines it's a huge immersive 6-week program. We do a little bit of everything, and we'll sing for representatives from different opera houses, which can often lead to connections. And then after that, I am planning to stay in the Chicago area. This city has proved to be incredibly illustrious for opera. I mean, lyrics here, obviously, but also locally, there's Chicago Opera Theater. I'm also an ensemble member of the Grant Park Chorus in Millennium Park that does all the big concerts and stuff. So I sing with them when I'm not doing other stuff. I have a great church job here. I cannot stress that enough to anyone that's going to watch this trying to find a church job, especially there's some that pay very well. And can really showcase you in a great way. And then, yes, I'm in my upper 20s. So at this point, I'm kind of continuing the YAP circuit as much as I can, doing the LaFont competition, national Nats, until I age out. So that's kind of the plan. But I would say really one thing that wasn't really in my brain at all as an undergrad was how much location can make or break your opportunities. Like obviously where you go to school is incredibly important, but if you're in a city that doesn't have like accessibility to a lot of art or ensembles or opportunities, it may prove harder to, make a living in what you want to do versus if you're in a, kind of more, not necessarily, it doesn't even have to be massive, but kind of more artsy city. So.
That's great. Great advice and great things from all of you. That's wonderful. Yeah, I should just clarify for any students that watch this later. Josh, you mentioned AD and YAP, and you should probably just explain what those two things are.
Yeah. So YAP just stands for Young Artist Program, which can mean a million different things. Honestly, I've started to feel like there should be different words for the different types of things. So different. So you've got like the entry level ones all the way up to the Lindemann or something, So
the Lindemann at the Metropolitan Opera, yes.
An entry level YAP might be something like the Chautauqua Institution or something that's more geared towards what I would consider quite young singers as undergrad singers. And then you've got other ones that are geared a little bit towards grad and post-grad, and then you've got ones that are for emerging professionals. And that would be your lyric opera, your Houston Grand Opera, your Metropolitan Opera, and all, millions of them. But yeah, and AD just stands for Artist Diploma, which is a postgraduate certificate. It's sometimes not even a degree. Almost always fully funded. Almost always, it's kind of like the institution gets to say that they did you, and you get to say that you went. So it's like mutually beneficial. I've always thought of it that way. So they're normally pretty dang hard to get into, but that's not going to stop you from trying for some reason. So yeah.
Good. Yeah, thanks for that clarification, because I know that's not even on the radar of all of our students at this point. They're worried about this next step, which you're all finishing that next step. But thank you for that. And so, if you could offer our students, current students, one piece of advice, what would that be?
For grad school?
Sure.
You're better than you think you are. PLU is not minting bad singers just because it's a liberal arts school. I went into my audition cycle thinking that I was like the tiniest fish ever. And I think it came to bite me in the butt a little bit. So believe in yourself. If you get an audition, you have what it takes to be at that institution, and don't second guess yourself about that.
I agree with that. I would also say, don't expect your voice teacher to fix all your problems. Because I think that I sort of went into grad school with that mentality, because I had chosen a teacher in the end that I thought was a perfect fit. And I was like, oh, great, he'll fix my issues. But that's only a small piece of the puzzle. So much of getting better is individual work and playing around in the practice room and learning about your voice and spending the time with yourself to make that happen. And then taking things to your teacher and they say, oh, that doesn't sound as good as you think, or something like that. But there's so much you have to do by yourself, or with other people listen, coaches, other people. But the teacher isn't going to fix you no matter how good they are. And at least if I could go back and talk to myself in the past, I would be like, hey, get a grip. You're going to have to do your own work here. So that's my advice, I guess.
Man, it's hard to think of one. I have like 20. But I guess the sentence that comes to my brain is relax, relax, and be kind. I can't really separate the two because in my head they're kind of related, but I mean, Jim can attest, I'm a very type A human. I work, I think, way harder than I should sometimes. And I think in our industry, we're told that we need to always be working harder. And a lot of times that is true and that is the case. But my God, if I could go back and tell, not even just me, but my friends, like everyone just relax, like relax 5 notches, just because there's no one right formula or equation to get you to where you want to go. We're all at different schools. We're all doing different things and we're all happy and thriving. I mean, as much as one can in COVID. And so I think just really not letting, where you want to go next cloud the now. Sounds so hokey, but like, just going to be frank here. Because you won't get that time back. We're never going to get our bachelor's back. These fond memories I have at PLU. So I would say just relax a little. And when I say be kind, I think it was actually maybe Barry once that talked about this, like collegial kindness and respect. It's something that it is so vital. Just and not even if you really don't like someone or they piss you off or they're rude or they have a weird thing against mezzos or tenors or whatever, just be kind. As I'm growing in this industry, I'm realizing it is incredibly small. People talk, people know each other. The way you behave to a maestro, to your voice teacher, to your peers is being observed, whether you think it is or not. And I think people should be kind anyway, but especially in this industry, I think that's something that is absolutely vital to moving through grad school because everyone knows each other. Literally everyone knows each other. So be nice for the sake of being nice, but also it's just important for, collegial rapport and strength. So
that's all of that is really great. I think that all 3 of you have had such different experiences. I mean, obviously you're in different places, and you bring really valuable insight to this next step that these people are going to take or not. So and that's fine too. I think grad school is a choice that every singer or musician, whoever is watching this later. The decision to go to grad school, I think, is a very individual one. And I think, obviously, the training is important. And if you're someone who needs a structure for that training, obviously, grad school is a great way to do that. Also, the networking opportunities it provides and all of that, that all of you are availing yourselves of, which is great. If people want to get in touch to ask questions, can I give them your email address and send them your way?
Of course.
Yeah, that'd be a great contribution as PLU alums.
Don't let all the stuff that we went through for the last 2 years go to waste. Like, please send us questions. I have gone through so much stuff, and just let them
Make it worth the tuition.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, let me say that all 3 of you are such beautiful human beings, and we're so proud of you, all of you. And it means the world to me to get to spend a little bit of time chatting and hearing about your experiences. And that we're all rooting for you in what comes next, whatever it is, wherever it is. And we're here, so don't be strangers. And I'm sure our students will be bothering you with questions too after they watch this. So
We hope so.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think so. I think so.
Well, thanks for having us. This is
Thank
great.
you all. Yes, and Josh, have a great graduation ceremony tomorrow. And yeah, Miya, you're going to meet Namarie, in Des Moines, who sang our Camille in Merry Widow at Vashon.
Oh, amazing. Awesome.
Wonderful young tenor, originally from Tacoma, actually.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah.
Just wait, that's
Finished
awesome.
just finished at University of Houston. So another grad school person. Anyway, and Nick, I'm going to try to see that Falstaff. That'd be great.
Yay.
Yeah,
Great.
it's one of my favorite operas. So yeah.
It's amazing.
Okay, y'all, have a great weekend. Thank you so much again.
Bye now.
Bye, Barry.
Thank you. Take care. Bye, Barry.
Bye, Barry.
Bye-bye.
Bye.